Please enjoy the story Cherry Lips. Beginning. You were temptingly beautiful, but stung when I got close. Why do we have school every day? Gazelle asks, running her fingers through her auburn hair as we walk down the school hallway. I turn my head and stare at her, as if she had heads, but I do agree with her. That's the idiotic question, I answer, moving a straight piece of curly hair that fell in my face. She turns to look me up and down, making an annoyed face. That's the idiotic question. Gazelle mimics me, her voice high-pitched and squeaky. Not funny. I laugh, playfully shoving her into one of the lockers in the hall. Gazelle laughs and shoves me back, having me almost trip on my shoelaces. Regaining me balance, I get ready to push her back, when a hard shoulder bumps into mine, landing my butt on the ground. With a groan, I look up and glare at the person's back who's continuing to walk as if they didn't knock someone down. Watch where you're going, I say at the person's back rudely, getting back up and dusting myself off. My bad, a deep voice mumbles, turning around. Yes, it is your boss. Looking up, my breath hitches as I stop mid-sentence. In front of me was a muscular boy, with short black hair and the bluest eyes I've ever seen. He had a quiet yet dangerous look on his face, which made him even more mysterious. He was honestly one of the hottest guys I've ever seen. Is there something on my face? The blue-eyed guy asked, knocking me out of my trance. I slowly shook my head, still staring at him in awe. Shrugging, he turns around and continues walking down the hall, disappearing into the groups of teenagers. What the hell was that, Asia? Gazelle asks, pulling my arm with her. I turned back around, hoping to see if he was still in the hallway, which sadly, he wasn't. I don't know, I guess I froze a little. Gazelle stares at me weirdly before finally saying, well, whatever it was, you should stay away from him. He's one of those weird kids. Opening my mouth to speak, I'm suddenly dragged away by Gazelle down the hallway with a question lingering in my head. What is his name? 1. People go, but how they left always stays. I breathe deeper as the summer wind brushes past my cheeks. Hiking my backpack strap higher onto my shoulder, I turn the corner, heading into Jefferson High. I look around at the young teenagers, some of them sitting on their cars, just chatting while others rush past to enter the school. I spot Gazelle, standing by the school entrance with some of her friends, including Owen, whom I had a crush on for at least 6 years but eventually gave up, since it obvious that I wasn't getting anywhere with him and that he only considered me as one of his close friends. Hey guys, I greet, waving my hand as I walk over. Gazelle friends smile and wave before walking away from us into the school, only Owen staying. What's up, Asia? Owen greets, playfully ruffling my curly hair, to which I slap his hand away, laughing. I see Gazelle look me up and down and cringes. Asia, you seriously decided to leave the house wearing that? She points a finger, gesturing to my outfit, which was great joggers and an oversized t-shirt, paired with Nike slides. My dark curly hair pinned up in a messy ponytail. Rolling my eyes, I shrug, sticking my hands in my pockets. I think she looks cute. Owen compliments, smiling. A small smile stretches across my face, causing me to look down. Owen has always been a sweet guy and he compliments everyone, only this time when he said it, I felt like he actually meant it, you know. But that's ridiculous, he only likes me as a friend. Gazelle scoffs, crossing her arms. Stop being such a flirt, she looks a complete mess. I look up and glare at her, actually feeling a little offended. She's always judging how I dress, and though I don't mind it, it really isn't her place to tell me how I'm supposed to look. I walk past her heading into the football field. Looking down at my watch on my phone, I already knew I was 5 minutes late. Sighing, I continue to walk, heading over to a nearby bench, where surprisingly, The male is already sitting. He seems to be writing something down on a notepad. As I get closer, realization crosses my face. I smile in excitement and my pace starts to get faster. "Hey!" I greet at the blue-eyed guy, sitting next to him. He stops what he's doing, looking up to stare at me confused. "Do I know you?" he asks. "Are you fucking serious?" I force a laugh, scratching the back of my head. "It's me, the girl you bumped into the other day." He continues to stare at me, seeming unconvinced. I sigh, rubbing my eyes in frustration. I turn to the side to face him, putting my hand out in front of him. "I'm Asia, what's your name?" I smiling in a warm gesture, making my appearance look friendly when in reality I'm not. I really want to get close to this guy for some reason. It's something about him that seems a bit off. Blue-eyed guy looks at me hand and back up at me. I continue to keep the smile on my face, though smiling this hard was starting to hurt. Slowly reaching his hand up, he grasps mine, his big hand fitting perfectly with my small one. I feel a knot in my stomach as I'm suddenly nervous just by touching him. "Chase," he states, still holding onto my hand. The name actually suits him, quiet yet mysterious. It's weird though, it being my senior year I've come to know almost everyone in my school, yet why haven't I ever seen him around? Maybe he doesn't go to school often, but why? I should try to ask him, but that'll just be way Rhea. I hear Chase mutter under his breath. "Excuse me." I tilt my head in confusion. Chase shakes his head in dismissal, letting go of my hand, making me lure for his touch again, and stands up, grabbing his backpack and notepad with him. "Where are you going?" I call after him as he's now a few feet away from me. He shrugs, continuing to walk. I get up too, running up to catch up with him. He glances down at me and looks ahead. "Weirdo," I hear him say under his breath. I ignore his insult though, happy that I finally made a friend for the first time in a while. 2. I'm selfish, impatient and a little insecure. I make mistakes, I am out of control and at times hard to handle. But if you can't handle me at my worst, then you sure as hell don't deserve me at my best. Marilyn Monroe. I can't believe that he cheated on me with some random girl. Gazelle exclaims, slamming her fist onto the cafeteria table loudly, causing a few students from tables near us to turn and stare at us. I rolled my eyes at her childish behavior. This is the 5th time her boyfriend, Andrew, cheated on her. They've been dating since sophomore year, and each time he cheats on her she comes to either me or Odin crying, saying she's dumping him for good. Then the next day they're back together. I tell her he's only dating her for her body, but she doesn't listen. So now when she tells me about him I just tune her out. You couldn't believe it the last 4 times either. Owen mutters under his breath, dipping the fry into his ketchup. I swear I'm so done with him. She continues, ignoring Owen's insult. I nod my head absent-mindedly, searching the cafeteria for one particular black-haired guy. He hasn't been to school in almost 2 weeks, and I'm starting to worry where he island. Owen seems to notice my worried expression and speaks up. "Who are you looking for, Asia?" I turn my head to look him. I shake my head in dismissal. "It's nothing." Gazelle looks at me and scoffs. "So please, she's looking for that weird guy, Mace, I think that's his name." "It's Chase," I reply, irritated at her obvious oblivion. Owen widens his eyes in shock. "I didn't know you're friends with that guy." I shrug, opening my water bottle to take a sip. "We became friends 2 weeks ago." "She likes him," Gazelle states, smiling at me. I spit back up my water, coughing. Regaining my composure, I turn to glare at her. "I do not like him. He's just a friend." "Sure he island," Gazelle retorts, taking her phone out to text someone. I rolled my eyes at her. "I don't like Chase. At least I don't think I do." A black girl and white man together. My mom would have a fit. Yeah, I definitely don't like him. How'd you meet him? I run my fingers through my curly mess of hair and look down at me fingernails, studying them. I bumped into him in the hall a few weeks ago. I answered Owen's question, grabbing a brush out of my purse and hair tie. He hums in response, staring over at me while I gather my thick hair into a high ponytail. Owen opens his mouth to speak when Grizel cuts him off. Thank goodness you finally put that mess into a ponytail. It's been bothering me the whole day. She laughs, looking at my ponytail. I feel a tinge of hurt as I ignore her rude comment. She's always doing this, criticizing how I look or dress every day, just because she's a different color than me. Every time I talk to her about it, the only response is that's what best friends are supposed to do. I guess she's right, but best friends don't bring each other down, right? Girl, don't be like that. Owen defends, glaring at her. He turns to me and gives me a sympathetic smile. Don't listen to her, Asia. You know how she island? Yes, I know, was my curt response as I stand up and walk to a different side of the cafeteria, not turning back. Most of the tables were taken and I was considering sitting outside until I saw an empty table in the far back. Heading over, I see someone, more like a boy, sitting there by himself with headphones in and a familiar brown notepad on their hand. A smile stretches over my face as I start to head over to where he's sitting. Grizel calls my name but I ignore her, still a little mad after what happened at the lunch table. Making sure I'm quiet not to disturb him, I set my tray down and sit across from him, catching his attention. Hey! I greet, smiling up at him. He blankly stares at me before nodding his head in a greeting gesture. He doesn't say anything after that, instead sketching something down on his notebook. I study his face for a while. His dark eyebrows furrowed in concentration, his pink lips forming a small frown. His black hair looked messy as if he ran his hand through it a few times. Today he's wearing all black, making his blue eyes stand out. I start to go bored, resting my head on my hands and staring at the picture Chase is sketching. The silence is starting to get extremely awkward, and it's killing me. What are you drawing? I finally ask to start a conversation. Taking his headphones out, he looks over at me before holding up his notebook. In front of me was a drawing of a curvy woman. Only thing was, she was naked. I gave him a look. You serious? He shrugs, putting the notebook back down. Women look their best nude. I laugh at his joke, shaking my head. He looks up, staring at me queerly. What are you laughing about? Your joke. I answered, still chuckling. I wasn't joking. I immediately stop my laughing, looking down at my folded hands. Well, this just got even more awkward. I look up after a few minutes and see that Chase is still drawing into his notepad. Her features are more realistic now, her eyes big and innocent, her smile big. She had short curly hair, that's all over the place, and her brown skin seeming to glow. She was so beautiful and looked so realistic for just a drawing. Who's that? I ask. He shrugs, continuing to draw. A girl? I scoff at his reply. Of course she's a girl, who else would she be? But the way he drew hair was so realistic and specific, like he's been drawing her for a while now. He closes his notebook fast, causing me to jump up. Looking over at me, he starts to stare at my hair. I start to feel self-conscious, and quickly pull the hood over my head. I know, it's mess. You should start wearing your hair down more. He cuts me off, gathering his things and standing up. Wait, what? I ask, surprised. Did he just compliment me? You should let your hair down more, it suits you, he says again, this time slowly. He turns around, heading out the cafeteria. I stare at his back, dumbfounded. He's the first person to say that, Not my mom. Not even Owen. I slowly pulled the hood off my head and covered my eyes, smiling widely. My skin feels so hot, and if I was any lighter, I'd be cherry red right now. 3. Was it hard? I asked, not letting go. Not as hard as holding on to something that wasn't real. I forgot who quoted this. Are you serious? Griselle looks me up and down in disbelief. It's Friday night and Griselle, with the help of Owen, convinced me to go to this party one of the jocks were hosting. While Owen wore a dress shirt and pants and Griselle wore a tight red bodycon dress paired with black high heels, I decided to go with something a little more simpler. After almost 2 hours of deciding, I decided to wear a plain black t-shirt with ripped jean overalls and some bold Adidas. My makeup consisted of mascara and clear lip gloss, my hair down and wild in its curly mess. What's wrong? I asked innocently, looking down at my outfit and back at her. She sighs loudly, obviously frustrated, and walks ahead of Owen and I, entering the huge house where the party is being hosted. I stifle a laugh, walking a little faster to catch up with her. Owen walks up to meet my pace and whispers in my ear, I think you look good, Asia. I smile at his compliment and whisper back, I know. Walking ahead of him, I enter the house, the door bombarded with young, dumb teenagers, some smoking while others are drinking some type of alcohol. I push through the crowd, entering the kitchen to grab a bottle of water. I look around the house. The living room is where most of the teens are, dancing on the floor as some Migos song is playing. One random girl with a hot pink crop top barfed by me, causing me to scoot a few feet away from her as she now lies in her pile of throw-up, unconscious. Owen's on the dance floor, talking to some of his jock friends. Catching my stare, he turns to look over at me, softly smiling, making me smile back. I look to my right, where the stairs are, seeing Griselle being dragged by some blonde-haired guy. She turns her head, catching my stare, and winks at me, the kind of wink that you know something's bad is about to go down. I do not want to be here, I say to myself, shuddering. Setting my half-drunk water bottle onto counter, I head down the hallway looking for the nearest restroom. After 5 minutes I finally found the restroom. Closing the door and locking it, I sit down onto the closed toilet, taking my phone out and calling my mom. It rings for almost 30 seconds, making me even more anxious than I already am. I then hear her voicemail, making me groan out loud and hanging up. I could just sneak out, but my house is far away from here and I can't even ask Griselle or she'll catch an attitude or just ignore me. Sighing out loud, I think of people that can pick me up, when suddenly an idea pops into my head. Turning on my phone, I quickly dial the number, putting the phone on my ear and waiting. After 3 rings he finally answers the phone. Hello? I hear a deep voice say. Chase, it's Asia, can you pick me up? I ask, playing with a strand of curly hair. The phone is silent for a few seconds, as I hear some shuffling through the phone. Somehow I'm starting to regret calling him, since I only known him for a short time, so I wouldn't be surprised if he rejected my plea. The shuffling stops, and I hear a jingle in the background. Finally, he puts the phone up to his ear and sighs. Tell me your address. This isn't the update, I just wanted to say that today marks 8 years since a legend died. I grew up listening to Michael Jackson, and it really broke my heart that he left this world too soon. My prayers go out to his family and his friends. Today is a very emotional day for me, even if he didn't know me. I was planning to update today actually, but tbh I really would rather sit in my room and listen to MJ songs. I am definitely updating this week, so please be patient for me guys. For it should have been us. Make a right. He makes a sharp turn. Keep going forward, then make a left at the next street. I stare ahead as I quietly give chase directions to my house. Thanks to him I had to wait 45 more minutes until he finally came to pick me up, but I'm grateful that he still came instead of ignoring my pleas. Once I got into his black car, he turned his head to stare at my outfit, then at me before starting up the car. I hear him softly say, "You finally started wearing your hair down." I didn't make a comment about it though. I knew if I did, he would act like he didn't say anything. I smiled at the thought. I also remembered I didn't tell Gazelle nor Hoan about my disappearance. They'll figure out sooner or later though. I look over at Chase, who's wearing black joggers with a black t-shirt, his bed hair covered with a black hat. I feel a little guilty for making him leave his house at 2 a.m. to come pick me up, but if he didn't want to come he could have ignored my call, which I am extremely grateful he didn't. I could have been walking by myself in the streets late at night if it wasn't for him. "Thanks," I softly mutter as I pull my wild curls out of my face. I see him out the corner of my eye nod his head. All the time I spent with him I noticed that he doesn't like to talk that much. In fact, he barely talks at all, only if I'm asking him questions or things like that. He's always drawing in the notepad of his with earbuds in his ear, blocking out the whole world. It gets boring sometimes when I hang out with him, but I don't mind it though. Sometimes silence is the best conversation. I instantly covered my stomach, embarrassment all over my face. If I was any lighter, my face would be a tomato right now. Chase looks over at me queerly, then glancing down at my stomach. "I'm just a little hungry." I weakly smile at him. He doesn't say anything, instead just focusing back on the road. I look up and see Chase pass my house, continuing to head down the street. I sit up straighter and speak up. "You've passed my age," I start, only to be cut off by Chase. "I know." "Shut up," he states, not once looking at me. I open my mouth to protest, but close it back up, not wanting to start an argument with him at 2 in the morning. Sighing, I slump back down in my seat, leaning my head against the window. That's how the ride went for 20 minutes. Me asking him questions and him either ignoring me or making some type of rude remark. If it was any other person, I would have already said something rude back, but it's Chase. That's how his personality is, so I guess you could say I'm used to it. The car finally comes to a halt. I sit up from my seat and look around to see if he hasn't put us in the forest or something to kill me yet. It's the exact opposite. He took us to Denny's. I widely smiled and turned to look over at him. I haven't been to Denny's in 6 years after that incident happened. Turning the engine off, Chase steps out of the car, me following pursuit. We quietly walk together to the entrance. Glancing up at him, I start to wonder why he would take us to a restaurant at 2 in the morning. I then smile, remembering my stomach growling in the car. He knows I'm hungry. It has to be the reason he took us here. He glances down at me, then up ahead. Seeming to read my mind, he bluntly states, "I'm hungry." I laugh at that, my smile getting wider at his obvious embarrassment. Holding the door open for me, I quietly thank him as we head to a table in the back, by the window. I sit across from him as we both look down at the menu. I notice his hat is still on his head before I speak up. "Chase, your hat. Take it off while we're inside." He blankly stares at me before saying no. I sigh at his stubbornness before leaving it alone. He never listens to me at all. In fact, he doesn't listen to anyone. I'll let him slide a few more times before finally saying something. A few minutes later, a young, blonde, curvy waitress walks up to us, smiling a bit too hard. "My name's Abby and I'll be your waitress today. What would you guys like to order?" she greets, looking at me then at Chase. "A bit too long." Smiling, I just ordered a cheese omelette with bacon, while Chase orders a coffee and scrambled eggs. Writing it down, she looks back up and stares at Chase with some type of emotion in her eyes. "Would that be all?" she asks, looking down at Chase and winking flirtatiously. "What do you think?" he replies, dryly. I reach over and smack his arm, hard. "Yes, that's it." I smiled up at her, not before glaring at Chase, who's rubbing his arm and muttering words under his breath. She just stares at me after rolling her eyes and walking off. What's her problem? I think, but just shrug it off. I feel eyes burn in me and look up to see Chase looking over at me, irritated. "Stop being so rude next time," I say, taking a sip of my water I ordered. "She was being rude to you though. I'm used to it." I wave my hand in dismissal, setting my glass of water down. Chase looks at me with an emotion in his eyes I can't decipher before asking, "Used to what?" I laugh, folding my hands onto the table. "Are we playing 20 questions?" I playfully ask. When I see that he's serious, I clear my throat before sighing. "Like I said, I'm used to it." The dirty looks, the talking behind my back, the acting like I don't exist just because I'm a darker skin color than most people in California. I'm used to all of it, so stuff like that doesn't bother me anymore. I shrug my shoulders, twirling my finger around the cup of my water. "Bullshit." Confused, I look up at him. "What is?" "You shouldn't be used to it." I open my mouth to reply when I see the plate set down in front of me. I look up and smile at Abby, thanking her. She ignores me and smiles at Chase, bending over to set his plate down, her chest a little too close to his face. "Do you need anything else?" she asks, staring at his lips then back at him. "Can you get away from me? You smell like raw meat," he states, covering up his nose and looking at her with disgust. I stifle a laugh, shoving the piece of omelet into my mouth. This time I don't say anything when he said that. She kind of deserved that. She sniffs her arms before looking up at him with anger. Slamming his coffee down, she turns around and stomps into the kitchen. I let all my laughter out, seeing Chase out the corner of my eye softly smiling before quickly changing his face to look blank if any emotions. "So bring up." I break off a piece of bacon and bite into it. Swallowing my food, I ask, "Can we play 20 questions? I'll go first." He shrugs, pulling his cup of coffee to his lips and taking a huge gulp of it. "All right, first question." I pause and start to think of what I should ask. "I got one," I mutter to myself. "Siblings?" He holds one finger up. "The older brother." I nod my head, say my brother is in the army. Chase sarcastically smiles. "Mine is in jail." I awkwardly take a bite of my omelet. What am I supposed to say to that? Clearing my throat, I ask a different question. "What are your parents' job?" "They're both dead." My mouth drops. I never should have played 20 questions. Things are getting awkward by the minute. I couldn't help myself, so I ask, "How did they die?" He shrugs, sticking a fork into his eggs then taking a bite. "Ask God." Change the topic. Change the topic. Change the topic. "So, any past relationships?" I causally ask, taking a sip of my water. He suddenly freezes, his fork dropping onto the table. I start to panic. Shit. I might have asked about a sensitive topic. "It's okay if you don't want to talk about Ty. Her name was Faith," he said, his eyes clouded over as he stares out the window into the dark night. "The picture you saw me drawing? That's her. I met her in middle school. She was quiet but clumsy." I don't say anything and let him continue speaking. I think he's not done talking yet. I set my fork down also and rest my head onto my hands, giving Chase my full attention. "We were friends until high school. We both obviously had feelings for each other, but I didn't ask her out until 10th grade. He continues, not looking at the window anymore but now at me. "She always had low self-esteem, saying she was fat and that boys never liked plus-sized girls. I would always reassure her and say that any girl would be jealous to have a body like hers. His eyes lit up in amusement as he seems to have flashbacks. We did everything together. We talked for hours on the phone and she loved it when I would draw pictures of her. She was honestly the first girl I fell in love with. He sadly smiles, looking down at his pants. Tears in the corner of my eyes as I quickly blink them back. I feel some type of remorse for Chase. I've never seen him make any type of emotion before and this is the first time to even see him smile, even if it was sad. What happened? I say, starting intently at him. I mentally facepalm myself when his face then turns blank. I hate it he does that, trying to block everything out when he doesn't want to answer something or let anything know how he's feeling inside. When senior year started, she changed. Started to hang out with the wrong crowd, doing drugs and drinking. Her straight days went down to C's and D's. She started putting too much makeup onto her face and straightening her hair entirely too much. I didn't say anything about it until I saw her kissing a guy, specifically my brother. My eyes widened in shock. I'm surprised I've never seen her nor Chase around school before, probably because I didn't talk to anyone really except Owen and Grizel. We got into a huge argument and broke up. Few days later she was found on the news, lying by a river dead. Chase pauses, inhaling a shaky breath. Worst part was, I didn't even tell her that I loved her. I sniff loudly, the tears now freely falling down my face. Chase looks up at me and rolls his eyes. Smacking me on the head with his wallet, he stands up. Stop crying, dork. I wiped my eyes with a napkin, also standing up. I can't believe Chase had to go through all of that by himself without anyone helping him. I regret that I never met him sooner, because I would have been the one to be right by his side through all of that. After paying without leaving a tip, we quietly walk back to the car. Do you still love her? I look up at him, curious to his answer. He yawns, resting his hands onto his head and looking up at the dark sky. Yet, he pauses, still staring up at the night sky. Well, now morning. I guess that's why I'm still hurting. Then he dies. Sorry I haven't updated in a while. I had camp but it's over sadly. Anyways, did y'all like this extra long chapter? I decided to give you guys a little background story on Chase's love life. Is this chapter good in y'all's opinion? Anything I need to improve on? Let me know in the comments and remember to VOTECOMME and here SHARE. BDW, y'all probably confused onto what happened to the cover and title. I decided to change the cover and title to make it less boring and more different. Do y'all like it? If not, let me know and I can change it right back. Thanks, love you guys and have a blessed day. 5. If roses are red, and violets are blue, why does every love song remind me of you? My eyebrows furrow deep in thought as I take the cherry from my bowl and bite into it, spitting the seed out into a different bowl by me. After Chase basically spilled his whole life story to me a few days ago, I think he's been avoiding me, since he hasn't been returning any of my calls or texts. It's bothering me and I don't know why. I kinda feel bad though, having him tell me everything about his life when he only knows that I have the older brother in the army. He didn't seem to mind it, though he's not talking to me. I can't stand it when he does this. Every time he opens up to me, he closes back up and tries to ignore me. I put my feet up on the glass table in our backyard and wiggle my manicured toes. It's so damn hot. I fan myself with my hand but it doesn't help one bit. In fact, it makes me even hotter than before. I sigh out loud, picking up the cherry bowl from my lap and setting it down on the ground near me. I throw my head back to see the pair of blue eyes staring down at me. Ah! I squeal out loud, falling out my chair and onto the grass, landing in the awkward position. What are you doing? Chase asks. staring down at me with an amused look, though he doesn't smile. I get back up without any help and dust myself off, glaring up at him. "What have you been doing the past couple of days?" I bitterly spit out, now realizing how angry I am at him. He doesn't answer my question right away, picking up the bowl of cherries on the ground and sitting down in the seat next to me, already scarfing down some of it. "Shut up, Cherry Lips. Before you start excusing me, I went to go visit my grandparents in Illinois." I raise an eyebrow at the nickname Cherry Lips but say nothing about it. Not wanting to argue with him any further, I slowly nod my head and reach over to grab some cherries from the bowl. We don't say anything for a few minutes, until I ask him the question that's been lingering in my head for a while now. "How'd you get into my house?" He shrugs, spitting out a seed into his hand and dropping it into the bowl I now set onto the table. "Your mom." I nod my head again, as we settle back into silence. Luckily it wasn't awkward silence, just comforting as we listen to the birds chirping and the rustle of leaves. I'd glance at him every once in a while, studying his face like I always do. He's wearing his usual all-black sweatshorts with a black Nike shirt paired with Nike slides and Nike socks. The only thing that wasn't black was his hat that was on his head, which was a white. I look at his face but unfortunately his eyes were blocked by his hat he was wearing. He was looking around my backyard, taking his time to study each object in it. I open my mouth to ask him something, when I'm cut off by my mother's voice from inside calling my name. I roll my eyes and slowly stand up, pulling my jean shorts down. "I'll be back." I point a finger to the door and stare at the back of his hat. He doesn't say anything as usual, instead taking the cherry out the bowl and biting into it. "Mom, for the last time, I don't like Chase. He's just a friend from school," I exclaim, grabbing a ponytail holder from the kitchen counter to wrap around my curly mess. My mom waves her hand in dismissal, grabbing the jug of lemonade to pour into the glasses she set out. "Nonsense, sweetie. You don't have to lie to me now." I internally roll my eyes at her. I haven't been inside for 5 minutes and she's already talking about my love life. Pulling the ice tray out the freezer, she puts 2 ice cubes in both of our glasses. "Besides, it's the first time you brought a boy home besides Owen. He seems like a nice boy though he doesn't say a lot. Even so, you'd seem to get along well." She playfully winks at me before laughing. I frown a little at her wrinkles that are starting to show. Me and my mom are like twins, big curly hair, big brown eyes, and similar noses. I barely see her since she's always in the hospital working, but we're extremely close. She's like a best friend and a mom at the same time. "Mom, I don't look." "Dear, don't argue with me and take this tray outside with you and Chase," she orders, handing me the tray of lemonade and sandwiches she made earlier. "Yes, Mother," I mutter, slipping on some sandals before I left the house. I watch my feet as I walk down the steps to make sure I don't trip on anything and drop the tray. "My mom brought lunch," I state, getting back into my seat and placing the tray on the table between us. He stays quiet, grabbing a sandwich off the tray and taking a bite out of it, humming in satisfaction. I look over at the bowl of cherries, now all of them gone. I look up at Chase and raise an eyebrow at him, smiling when he looks down at the bowl also and shrugs. We stay outside for at least an hour, me watching him draw some type of landscape as he mumbles quietly to himself. I close my eyes and smile. I never had this much fun hanging out with someone even if we weren't saying much. Every time I hung out with Owen or Gazelle, we either went to parties or shopping. For once in a long time, it felt nice to just relax. Come to this hangout with a couple of friends of mine. I almost choke on the lemonade I was drinking. Coughing out loud, I pat my chest while Chase waits for my answer. "He has friends." "Yes, I have friends. It's so shocking, right? Chase dryly asks. I panic, patting his shoulder to show I didn't mean it like that. Great going, Asia. I just said that out loud. I mean, like, I don't see you really hang out with anyone at school besides me. I was just surprised, that's all. I'm glad though. I smiled up at him, still a little shocked at the fact anyone can't deal with someone like him. Hell, I'm surprised that I can't deal with him. They go to different schools, he explained, picking up the bowl of empty cherries and seeds while standing up. I hum, picking up the empty tray and following him inside. Mom, Chase is leaving. I call out, setting the tray onto the counter as Chase puts the bowls in the sink not before emptying them. I hold in my laughter as I see my mom practically run downstairs. Running her hand through her now straightened hair, she surprises Chase by pulling him into a hug. He stays stiff, with his arms glued to his sides before slowly wrapping his arms around my mom, awkwardly patting her on the back. My mom pulls away, smiling up at him before looking at me. Please do come back. I get rather lonely with only Asia in the house. Thanks for the support, Mom. I appreciate it. Chase did something that shocked the hell out of me. He smiled, a real actual smile with his pearly white teeth showing. He never smiles at me. I think to myself, huffing out loud. I'll be back soon, Andrea. Thanks for inviting me in. My mom gives him one last hug before going back upstairs, possibly to get ready for work again. When does he ever address my mother at her first name? I mutter to myself as I follow him outside. I'll be back soon, Andrea. I mock, slouching at the front door as I see him head to his car. Shut up, he calls out at me. I laugh out loud and wave at him. Opening his car door, he suddenly pauses, turning around and walking up to me. Confused, I stand up straighter, staring at him. He pulls out a piece of paper and hands it to me. I look down at it and back at him. It has directions on it, but for what reason? Noticing my confused look, he sighs. It's directions to the place my friends and I will be at. Be ready by 8 tonight. He turns back around and heads into his car, soon driving off. Closing the door, I check my watch, realizing it's already 4 hours to get ready. I think to myself as I head to the backyard again. 6. These nights and these lights remind me of you. I do not own any of these quotes. All of them go to their rightful owner. I inhale a shaky breath as I sit on the porch in front of our house. Who knew that 4 hours on a Saturday could go by so fast? I'm a little nervous, since I'm about to meet Chase's friends for the first time. What if they don't like me? I bite my bottom lip, hating that I'm questioning myself, but I can't help it. What if they're just like Chase? What if they're the opposite of Chase? What if he doesn't like my hair? What if... Stop talking to yourself, weirdo. I hear Gazelle's playful voice stop my train of thought as she too waits for Owen's car to pull up. Gazelle decided to come against my will, even when I told her it's not even the party. She found out when she came over my house to pick up something she left. I didn't bother telling Chase, knowing him he'd just shrug his shoulders and say he doesn't care. Somehow Owen found out, since he texted me saying he'll be at my house in 10 minutes. I find it odd though, they don't even like Chase, so why would they want to hang out with his friends? I'm nervous, that's all, I explain, rolling my eyes as she now checking herself out in the house window. Of what? She slouches a hand on her hip, looking down at me as she's standing up. You look decent enough. You should just worry about your hair getting frizzy from you sweating so much. She moves her hand to rough up my hair, smiling. I playfully hit her leg and laugh, though she was right. I'm starting to sweat because of how nervous I am, and these black clothes aren't doing any help. Besides my hat and shoes, which were both red, I decided to wear a black t-shirt and black ripped jeans, for once straightening my hair that reached past my shoulders and down my back. Gazelle made a face about my outfit but didn't say nothing about it, since I threatened to not take her with me. I opened up my clear lip gloss and applied some to my dry lips, also opening my mirror to make sure my mascara wasn't ruined from the sweat. I look over at Gazelle's outfit and start to feel self-conscious. She decided to dress similar to me, only she wore a white crop top with a matching skirt that barely past her thighs, paired with a hat and hair shades, both pink. I shake the feeling off though, reminding myself that I look just as good as her, in fact, better. It's just, I pause to think of the words that are about to slip through my lips. I'm worried about Chase. I finally answer her, running my fingers through my hair. What if he doesn't like how I'm dressed? Or my hair? He said he likes it better when it's curly but he never seen it straight, but still I don't know, he might know. Gazelle bursts out laughing. I immediately stop my rambling and look down at my hands embarrassed. So bring up. She plops down next to me on the stairs. Since when do you care what Chase thinks of you? Or what anyone thinks of you? I've always cared what people think of me. I snap, suddenly irritated at her. She holds her hands up in surrender, laughing a little when I give her the stink eye. I don't know, Asia. If anything, I'm starting to think you're starting to develop feelings for that emo dude. She playfully winks at me, patting my knee. I almost choke on my spit. I've only known him for 2 months, that's impossible. I mean, sure, he's hot and he seems to have that mysterious aura about him that's attractive, and his eyes, God, his eyes are just so beautiful. The way they reflect in the legend. No, stop, Asia. Even though he is undoubtedly attractive, he's just a friend. You don't like him. You've said that once, Gazelle. I don't like him. I deadpan, staring directly at her. She has in fact said this once, but it didn't bother me as much as it's bothering me now. She sighs, standing up to walk to Owen's car, which just arrived. I eventually get up too and walk with her. I straightened my clothes out and fixed my hair to look presentable for his friends. Gazelle seems to notice this and snorts out loud. You like him? She sings, skipping ahead of me. I do not, I exclaim, my voice obviously sounding obviously annoyed, and that's how the whole car ride went. With her bothering me about liking him when my only reply was no, but even so, while I was convincing her, deep down inside of me, I knew I was trying to convince myself also. And that thought itself scared me. Owen's car pulls up to a huge 2-story house. The sides of the driveway had lights coming out of it, making it look like some Broadway show. In the middle of the front lawn, there was a small fountain, with water shooting out the top. All in all, the house was beautiful. I give points to whoever owns this house. It's practically a mansion. I'm starting to think this wasn't such a bad idea. Gazelle mumbles, opening up her car door and stepping out. I too open my car door, waiting for Owen to lock his door and step out. Are you sure Chase wouldn't mind if we tagged along? Owen asks wearily as we head up the stairs to the front door. He's wearing his football jersey and some jeans, his brown hair slicked back with gel. I shrug my shoulders. Chase doesn't care, was my only response. We near the door and my hands start to get sweaty. You can do this, I think to myself. Taking a deep breath, I reach over and ring the doorbell, the loud sound emitting out, causing all of us to cover our ears. A few seconds later the door opens to reveal Chase, who's wearing the same outfit from earlier. This time his slides are replaced with black hair shades. You came, he stated, trying to sound nonchalant, but I could tell he was happy from the look in his eyes. I smile widely at him, my nerves calming down a bit. You mind if I brought some of my friends also? I ask, gesturing the finger to Owen and Gazelle. He shrugs, opening the door up wider for us to enter. I don't care. You never did, I reply with a laugh, squealing when he brings his hand up to playfully push me. Gazelle makes a noise and causing me to turn around and silently telling her to shut up with my eyes. She immediately obeys, grinning from ear to ear at Chase and I. I could feel Owen's lingering gaze on us but shake it off, walking faster to catch up with Chase's pace. He gives me a sideways glance but doesn't say nothing about it. "You look different," he bluntly states, staring ahead. I stop in my tracks. Owen and Gazelle are already outside, Gazelle saying she couldn't wait any longer and wanted to give me and Chase some alone time. I start to grow more self-conscious of myself. I knew I shouldn't have straightened my hair. I think to myself, frowning at a piece of straightened hair that I was twirling with my finger. Seeing my troubled look, Chase speaks up. "I mean that in a good way, stupid. You look cute." He gives me a small thump on my forehead, going forward without me. I just stand there in the middle of the hallway, my face starting to feel extremely hot. He said I'm cute. I couldn't stop my smiling as I replayed the recent events in my head over and over again. I feel a fuzzy feeling in my chest, though I quickly shake that feeling off. He's just a friend, I say to myself, walking over to pull the door open to the backyard. And he always will be. 7. And the moon taught her that something less brighter can be beautiful too. Gredvangst. Silence. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at me, like I was some type of art exhibit they were trying to find the meaning of. I nervously cough, rubbing the back of my head as I feel the judging stares on me. Chase, seeming oblivious to the awkwardness, clears his throat. "This is Cherry L, Asia," he stutters, introducing me. I quietly giggle at the name he's starting to call me but stop once he glances over at me. Chase then points to a boy with long blonde hair pulled into a bun with green eyes. "That's Jarrett. He seemed like one of those fuck boys on Instagram, but he was cute." The boy winks then grins at me. "Chase, you didn't tell me your friend was so BA. Don't even try it." Chase cuts him off, now pointing to another boy who had tattoos along his arm which was kind of hard to see from his dark complexion. He had dreads braided to the back, which was interesting since I've never met the person with them, and a menacing look, making him look like some type of gangster. "That's CJ. CJ smiled, showing his grills. I liked him already, since I'm finally not the only black person here. He pointed to a girl, with a black hijab on. She seemed to have makeup on, her eyebrows perfectly shaped and her plum lips coated with pink lip gloss. Her high cheekbones seemed to shine, making her more beautiful than she already was. "That's Amra." She smiled, showing her pearly white teeth. I smiled back, instantly liking her. Finally, he pointed at another girl, with blonde pin-straight hair and blue eyes, though hers wasn't as bright as Chase. She could pass as a model for how skinny and beautiful she was. I smiled at her, but in return she just blankly stared at me. "Her name's Jessica, but we call her Jess." I nodded. I have a feeling she wouldn't want me calling her that. They all returned back to their conversations, leaving me to just stand. I awkwardly rubbed my arm, before heading over to sit under the tent wall seat surrounded by a bonfire to sit next to Gazelle with Amra and Jessica. Amra notices my presence and stops whatever she's talking about to smile up at me. I smile back at her and sit down, with Gazelle on the right of me. "Took you long enough. What was you and Loverboy doing in that house?" Gazelle questions, nudging me with her shoulder. I open my mouth to speak when my face starts to heat up and I instantly close it back up. Usually I'd be quick to say something, but this time words wouldn't come out my mouth. Amra gasps and playfully hits my shoulder. "You didn't tell us anything was going on between you two." "That's because I just met you," was what I was thinking, but I just laughed. "There isn't, he's just a friend." I look over at Gazelle and roll my eyes. She just likes to joke around. Gazelle gave me a look but didn't say anything else. Amra opened her mouth to say something else when someone beat her to it. "How long have you known Chase?" Jessica questioned, crossing her arms and looking over at me with an emotion I can't decipher. "2 months now," I answered her proudly. Jessica narrows her eyes at me. "I don't believe it," she replies, taking a sip of her water. I look over at Amra confused. "Chase takes a while to trust people," she explains, smiling. "You just meeting him and he's already introducing you to us must mean you're really special to him." I looked away embarrassed. I leave my throat and nod my head, even though in the inside I was jumping up and down. Jessica snorts out loud, almost glaring over at me. "That's probably because she reminds him of Faith." "Yes, I know." I finish for her, watching as Amra and Jessica's mouth drop open. Gazelle looks up from her phone confused before she shrugs her shoulders, going back to texting probably her boyfriend. I knew I looked similar to Faith, and Chase probably knew it too. I didn't want to tell him though, it'll just be more awkward. "UK no?" Amra asks, her face looking a bit shocked. I felt a little proud that I already knew this kind of information before any of his friends when he met them, but didn't showing it by keeping my face neutral. "He told me last week," I explained to them, a smile creeping on my face as I see Jessica roll her eyes in annoyance. "Are you sure you guys aren't dating?" Amra asks me again, laughing. I feel like she's trying to ease the awkward tension between everyone, which I'm thankful for. I laugh again, shaking my head. We all talked for a while after that, Jessica every once in a while asking me questions about Chase as if it's some police investigation. I answer her questions, getting every one of them right, seeing her get more and more annoyed. Only the next question she asked me, I wasn't ready for. "Did Chase tell you why Faith killed herself?" I furrow my eyebrows together in confusion. "Faith didn't kill herself. She was killed by some group of guys," I answer, frowning. Jessica laughs out loud, a little too loud, causing the guys' attention to look over at us. "Just don't start this now," I hear Amra tell Jessica quietly, her eyes pleading. Jessica shakes her head, a smirk growing on her face. I glare over at her, the tension surrounding us. She's lying. I kept replaying those words in my head though, something about her voice told me she wasn't. "How?" I quietly ask. I didn't look her in the face though, I couldn't. I'm embarrassed and ashamed that I thought I was the closet onto him and knew everything about him, when in reality I'm not. "Jessica, stop!" Amra presses, her voice rising a little at the end as she glares over at her. Jessica ignored Amra's stares and decided to stare directly at me. "You want to know the real reason?" she asks me. I nod, raising my head up to meet her gaze. "Chase and I." "Jessica, stop it." Everyone stops talking to look over at Amra, her face turning red with embarrassment. Straightening her back, she glares at Jessica. "If Chase is ready to tell her the real reason, he'll tell her." Amra dismisses the conversation, taking a sip of her lemonade. Jessica sighs out loud and stands up, grabbing her purse and leaving without another word. I also excuse myself, heading into the kitchen. I want to go home, and never come back to whoever house this is. I feel sick to my stomach over the fact that Chase lied to me. He must have had a good reason to doing it, but why? I really thought he was opening up to me. Then again, we did just meet, though I felt a connection between us. I run a hand through my hair and slumped down onto the kitchen chairs. I guess it's back to square one. 8. I hit 1K on my other story, cigarettes. Thank you to whoever read it and voted. I glared at Chase before again turning the radio back on to fill the car with Beyonce's voice in the background. For the last 30 minutes we've been childishly fighting over the radio. He turned off the radio whereas I turned it back on, partly to get on his nerves. He groaned out loud. Turn the damn radio off. I rather not listen to this Watch your mouth, I snapped. Let me listen to music for once, since you won't tell me where the hell we're going. It's been 3 weeks since I've seen Chase, as I've been avoiding him this whole time. I don't want to, but I can't help it. If he wants to lie to me, then he shouldn't bother being my so-called friend. I know I shouldn't be making such enough deal out of this, but I'm not going to lie and say that it didn't hurt, because it did. The thought of him not trusting me at all after all the time we spent together made me angry at him. I don't think he'd notice, but in fact he did, since he decided to show up at my doorstep at 2 a.m. in the morning with me only wearing black yoga pants and a pink tank top, with my black bonnet still attached to my head. Out the corner of my eye I saw him gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, his muscles on his arm flexed as he did so. He soon relaxes, his shoulders sulking down. I should have threw you in the trunk. I didn't say anything to that, rolling my eyes and leaning over to turn the radio back on to fill in the silence. I grabbed my small bag of fresh cherries that I quickly stashed inside my jacket before we left out my pocket, ignoring Chase's snickers, and start to munch on them. Looking outside, I start to see trees, rows of them. In the far distance there's a huge lake, the water glistening under the full moon's bright shine. Though it was pretty, I'm starting to wonder if he's taking me here to chop my head off. His black car pulls to an abrupt stop near the lake in a parking lot. Taking his keys out of the ignition, he opens his door, quickly rushing over to the passenger side to open mine. I step out without thanking him and cross my arms across my chest. Why are we in the middle of nowhere? Instead of answering, he asks a question of his own. What's on your head? I bring the hand up to my bonnet, lightly patting the top. It's called a bonnet. He tilts his head to the side, confused, so I continue. It's what black girls use to keep their hair straight and not messy. Basically a hat. I shrug but nod my head. Basically. So why can't you just wear a hat? Look, I'm not about to explain the history of bonnets to you. Just show me what you want to show me so you can take me back home. I put a hand on my hip, getting frustrated over the fact that I could be sleeping right now. He ignores me and turns around, walking ahead, motioning me to follow. I slowly but cautiously walk after him. Both of us don't say anything, the crunch of dead leaves the only noise between us. My feet start to get sore as we walk up the high and steep hill. I ask him every few minutes if we're close to the destination. His only response is either ignoring me, or telling me to be quiet. He finally stops in his tracks, making me bump into him and almost falling. Luckily I catch myself. I walk up to stand next to him, looking over his shoulder up at him. His eyes aren't down at me, instead of ahead, his eyes showing a sad emotion. I look up in amazement. In front of us is this huge tree, the green leaves seeming to glow under the moon. There's a huge, long trunk that sticks out, a swing being attached to it. I walk closer to it to sit down but stop once I see what's marked onto the seat. C+F. She carved that when we were 13. I feel his warm presence by me, only I didn't look at him. Instead I continued to stare down at it. I reach down and trace my finger over the carvings, feeling the pang of jealousy run through me. I wash away that feeling and look up at him. Why did you show me this? He shrugs, sitting down onto the swing, lightly pushing himself. You're the only person that I ever invited here, besides Faith. He smiled up at me, showing his teeth for the first time in a while. I should have kept holding a grudge against him. I should have asked why and how Faith died, or if she died, considering that he lied to me. I didn't do any of that though. I felt like I shouldn't. I smiled back at him, instead walked over behind him, helping him go up higher on the swing. We don't say anything for the rest of the night. I surprisingly enjoyed the silence for once. I was about to bring up what Jessica said but quickly caught myself. I didn't want to ruin his mood nor mine, and besides, I decided that if he wanted to tell me then he will. Until then I'll be patient and wait. No matter how long it takes. The end.